Imagine turning on the radio in the 1970s and suddenly hearing a bright piano melody, a powerful chorus, and two unforgettable voices singing together with perfect harmony. Within seconds, you know exactly who it is. That magical sound belongs to one of the most beloved pop groups in music history, ABBA. Their songs are joyful, emotional, sometimes dramatic, and almost impossible not to sing along to. But behind the glittering costumes, catchy melodies, and worldwide fame lies a fascinating story of friendship, love, heartbreak, and musical genius. The story of ABBA begins in Sweden in the late 1960s, long before the world knew their name. The group was made up of four incredibly talented musicians: Agnetha Fältskog, Björn Ulvaeus, Benny Andersson, and Annie-Frid Lyngstad. At first, they weren't a band at all. They were simply artists who crossed paths through Sweden's music scene. Benny had been part of a successful Swedish band, while Björn was a member of a popular folk group. When the two met, they quickly discovered they had incredible chemistry as songwriters. They began writing songs together, experimenting with melodies and pop arrangements. Around the same time, both men fell in love. Björn started a relationship with Agneta, who was already a well-known singer in Sweden, famous for her clear, emotional voice. Benny fell in love with Annie-Frid, often called Frida, whose deep and expressive voice complemented Agneta perfectly. What started as two couples slowly evolved into something bigger. When the four of them began performing together, something special happened. Their voices blended beautifully, and Benny and Björn's songwriting created melodies that were both simple and brilliant. In the early 1970s, they began recording songs together, though they still didn't have the name ABBA yet. Their performances started attracting attention across Sweden. But the moment that would change everything came in 1974 at the Eurovision Song Contest. Representing Sweden, the group performed a bright, energetic pop song called Waterloo. Wearing flashy costumes and delivering an unforgettable performance, they captured the audience instantly. When the votes were counted, they had won the entire competition. That victory launched them onto the global stage. The name ABBA itself was created from the first letters of their names: Agnetha, Björn, Benny, and Annie-Frid. It was simple, symmetrical, and memorable. Soon after Waterloo, their songs began spreading across Europe, then across the world. But their real breakthrough came with a string of pop hits that seemed to appear one after another like magic. Songs like Mamma Mia, SOS, Fernando, and Dancing Queen dominated international charts. Dancing Queen in particular became one of the most iconic pop songs ever recorded. Released in 1976, it captured the feeling of youth, excitement, and the thrill of dancing under bright lights. It even reached #1 in the United States, something very rare for a Swedish band at the time. Part of what made ABBA so special was the balance between their voices. Agneta's bright, crystal-clear tone blended perfectly with Frida's richer, deeper sound. Together they created harmonies that felt emotional and powerful. Meanwhile, Benny and Björn worked tirelessly behind the scenes as songwriters and producers, carefully crafting each melody, lyric, and arrangement. Their songs sounded joyful on the surface, but many of them carried deeper emotions beneath the catchy tunes. Another thing that made ABBA unforgettable was their visual style. Their costumes were bold, colorful, and sometimes wonderfully outrageous. Sparkling jumpsuits, platform boots, dramatic capes. On stage, they looked like pop royalty. But the reason for those costumes wasn't only fashion. Swedish tax rules at the time allowed performers to deduct clothing expenses if the outfits were too unusual to wear in everyday life. So the more extravagant the costumes became, the better. As the 1970s continued, ABBA's popularity exploded. They toured across Europe, Australia, and other parts of the world, performing for thousands of screaming fans. In Australia especially, the reaction was so intense that it was compared to Beatlemania. When they arrived at airports, crowds filled the streets just to catch a glimpse of them. Yet behind the scenes, life inside the group was becoming more complicated. Remember, ABBA wasn't just a band, it was also two married couples. In 1979, Bjorn and Agneta divorced. A few years later, Benny and Frida also separated. For most bands, that kind of personal turmoil would destroy the group. But somehow, ABBA kept working together. In fact, some of their most emotional songs came during this period. One example is "The Winner Takes It All," sung by Agnetha with heartbreaking intensity. The song describes the pain of losing a relationship and watching someone you once loved move on. Many listeners believed it reflected her own feelings after the divorce. Whether that was true or not, the emotion in her voice made the song unforgettable. By the early 1980s, the music world was changing again. New genres like synth pop and new wave were rising. Although ABBA continued recording music, the group gradually slowed down. In 1982, they effectively stopped working together, though they never officially announced a breakup. Each member went on to focus on individual projects and personal lives. For many years, ABBA seemed like a beautiful memory from the disco era, a band whose songs still played on radios and at parties around the world. But their story was far from over. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, something surprising happened. A stage musical called Mamma Mia was created using ABBA's songs. The story followed a young woman trying to discover who her father was, all while classic ABBA hits drove the story forward. The musical became a massive international success, performed in theaters across the world. Then came the film adaptation, Mamma Mia, starring Meryl Streep and Amanda Seyfried. The movie introduced ABBA's music to a whole new generation of fans. Suddenly, songs written decades earlier were climbing charts again. Even more remarkably, after nearly 40 years apart, the members of ABBA reunited in the studio. In 2021, they released a brand new album called Voyage. Fans around the world were stunned and delighted. The album proved that their musical chemistry had never truly disappeared. Along with the album came an extraordinary concert experience in London called ABBA Voyage, where digital avatars of the band perform on stage, recreating the energy of their classic performances using cutting-edge technology. It's not just nostalgia, it's a bridge between past and future. Today, decades after their first big hit, ABBA remains one of the best-selling music acts in history. Their songs continue to be streamed, covered by new artists, and sung by fans of every age. From weddings to dance floors to movie soundtracks, their music still brings people together. And maybe that's the real secret behind ABBA's magic. Their songs are joyful but honest, glamorous but deeply human. They sing about love, heartbreak, hope, and memories, the emotions everyone understands. So when you hear the opening piano of Dancing Queen or the dramatic chorus of Mamma Mia, remember that you're not just hearing a pop song. You're hearing the story of four musicians from Sweden who came together, created something timeless, and gave the world music that refuses to fade away. Because some songs belong to a moment in time. But ABBA's songs feel like they belong to everyone, everywhere, yesterday, today, and many years into the future.